So in this part of our RPG tutorial series, we're going to show you how to make a simple quest system. Here we're going to show you how to make something where you collect items and also a quest on killing an enemy. So the first thing we're going to do is show you how to make a quest on collecting items, and we are actually going to go into our assemblies folder where we're going to show you a pre-built quest that you can build on top of. And sometimes what you'll find in Project Spark is looking into the assemblies area will give you some pre-built assets that can really help make your building experience more drag and drop. So go all the way over to Q, because we're looking for quest, and you'll see 3 quests here. There's a quest pre-built for defeating enemies, one for an escort, and one for fetch items. So we're going to do the fetch items quest. We're going to bring that in. So that brings in a few different items. That's the benefit of an assembly, is assemblies allow you to have multiple items that you bring in together at the same time, and you can always save items as assemblies too. So we're going to rotate this around, place it right here. And so the basic setup is we have a quest giver right here. She's going to say that she's hungry and we need to find an apple for her, which just happens to be right behind her. So you grab that apple, bring it back to her, and she'll reward you with a golden coin. So that's a simple enough quest. We won't even jump into tests for it because it'll take you 30 seconds to do. But what we want to do is we want to modify this to make it so I have to now collect 5 apples instead of 1 apple. And this will show you kind of the benefit of taking these pre-built assets and modifying on top of them. So let's jump inside the brain of our quest giver, because that's where all of the activity is happening. So let's first run you through what's happening on each page. The first page is the interact page. This is where it's showing that the quest giver is there ready to give you a quest, and this is where you kind of accept the quest. So when they're not detecting the player, which is you, then they are making a greet emote. As soon as they detect you, then they're going to say, "Hello adventurer, would you be so kind as to bring me an apple?" And then as soon as you interact with them, basically to agree to do that, it's going to bring you to the second page, which is the quest active page. Currently this page just looks for if you have that apple that's on that tree in your inventory. If you don't have it in your inventory, it'll tell you basically your quest is to find the apple. And if you do have it in your inventory, then it'll tell you that your quest is now give the apple to the hungry peasant. And then when it is in your inventory and you go back to this character once they detect you, they're going to say, "Did you find the apple?" You're going to interact with them, give them the apple, and then go to the final page, which is the quest complete page. On this page, the character is they're going to pick up your apple, they're going to say, "Thanks, here's your reward," and then they're going to throw a coin at you. So that's a very simple progression. So let's modify this out to allow you to, instead of having just 1 apple, pick up 5 apples. And that really all happens on this second page. The first page, which is just the initialization page or the interact page, that you can tweak to have the villager say new things or do new things, but that's actually not really controlling what you're actually doing. The quest active page is the page that is doing the things where you actually have to update quest logs. And this is also kind of important to show you how you should set up your quest pages inside of a different character. You have kind of an interacted or initialization page, you then have a quest active page, and then you have a quest complete page. That's like a perfect setup right there. And we're going to do that when we move on to our second quest we build. So the first thing we can do is we can get rid of a few things. We don't really want to display this apple on our screen. That's really not necessary. We don't want to have a sparkle around our apple. That's not necessary either. And then we also don't want to display the apple on the screen once we have it in our inventory. The next thing we want to do is when our quest is active to find 5 apples instead of 1, we want to modify the string of text. And we can actually do that by just clicking on the right stick, brings this up, and we are going to change this to quest find. And the reason why I'm just saying quest find is because we're going to do a text string here. So we next want to have a number variable, and we're going to call this number variable apples left, and then we're going to have text after that, and it's going to say apples for the hungry peasant. So what this does is this brings these three lines together, and they spit out quest find X apples for the hungry peasant. And now this number you can change, so you can kind of decrease that as your character picks up more apples. You can also have these strings of text together with a plus, so you can have a plus in between them. Both of these work with or without a plus, but this combines all of these text items together into one text string. So that's great. The next thing we want to do is we want to initialize how many apples you have left. So we want you to collect 5 apples, so that means the amount of apples you have left is going to start at 5. And now we no longer need to look for if this apple is in the player's inventory. What we just need to look for is if your apples are greater than 0. So the apples left, the apples you still have to collect, is greater than 0, then it's going to tell you how many apples you have left for the hungry villager. And then, if you interact with her during that time, she's going to say, look for an apple hanging off the tree. We don't have to worry about changing that. You can, of course, change that. So then down here, before we were looking at when the player's inventory does contain apple, now we want to look for when this object variable called apples left is less than or equal to 0, because you could somehow accidentally go into negative numbers. Then it's going to update the quest and say give the apple, and instead we're going to just change this to give the apples to the hungry peasant. And then it'll go through the same series of things, but now we are instead basing all of this off of a number variable, and if this number variable is greater than 0 or less than or equal to 0. So how we actually reference that is we have this apple right here. We can just remove this text, or we don't really have to worry about this. And we can just simply say when interacted, this character is the one who has all the text running inside of them, or all the code running inside of them. So that character, go to number variables and say apples left, and we decrement that or decrease that by 1. So once this apples interact with, your player is going to pick it up, and then the quest giver, their number variable, apples left, because it is a local number variable that we have running inside of that player, we're going to decrease that by 1. If we just say apples left, then this doesn't really know what number variable we're talking about because it's not defined inside of this brain. That is defined inside of another brain, so you need to reference that other brain, and this is how we do it, by selecting that quest giver right there. So now all that's really left is taking this apple and making some copies of it. So we got apple 1, then apple 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's jump into test. So we can run up to this character, accept, and now it says quest find 5 apples for the hungry peasant. So we get 1, goes down to 4, goes down to 3, 2, 1, and then our quest updates to give the apples to the hungry peasant. So now we can go back to her, give her the apple, and she's going to give us the coin. So just like that, we modified this assembly in order to change it so that we have multiple objects. So you can, of course, easily change that to a fetch quest for any sort of item. It doesn't just have to be apples. And you should probably make them a bit harder to find than being right next to you. So the next quest we're going to show you is how to make a simple defeat this enemy for a reward quest. So we have another character right here who's going to give out our quest. And I actually copied basically all of the code from this initial quest giver into this one and modified it a bit. So let's jump in there. So we have our kind of initialization page, and just like before, they're greeting you, they're turning towards you, and instead they're going to say something different this time. So she's going to say, kill that mean looking goblin for me, will ya? And once you accept it, you're going to go to this quest active page. Now the difference on this quest active page is before we were evaluating if there were 0 apples left or 5 apples left or however many apples were left. Here we're evaluating if a Boolean is true or not. This goblin killed, if it's true, then the quest is going to say talk to the quest giver, and it's going to bring you to quest complete once you interact with her. If it's not, this is where else comes in. Else is basically saying, or else we do this. So if goblin killed is true, this happens. Or else, if it's false, we do this. We have this quest that says defeat the goblin, and when we go back to the character, when it's not true, they're going to say take care of him already. So we have that all set up in here. Now let's show how we can simply put one line of code in our goblin to make this work. So let's get a goblin scavenger right here. And just for the sake of this tutorial, let's bring his health down quite a bit. So let's go to Properties, Combat, Health and Defense, and let's bring his max health down to, let's say, 5 points. So it'll be a one-hit KO. So now inside of this goblin, we just have to put somewhere within here, let's just put it kind of the last line, when started to, then we go to Combat, is dead. So this evaluates if the goblin is dead or not. Then on the do side underneath of it, we don't have to make this a child line, it's sort of a habit, but I'll put it on the same line here. On the do side, we then evaluate that this person, the one who has all of the quest code running, their Boolean that we set, which let's just look in there to see what the Boolean is. And that Boolean was goblin killed, so let's copy that. So woodland peasant goblin killed equals true. So now this evaluates as soon as the goblin is dead, it's going to make this Boolean goblin killed equal true, and therefore you'll be able to complete this quest. So let's bring him a bit farther away so he won't disturb you when you're talking with her. Let's jump into test here. So she says, kill that mean-looking goblin for me, will ya? Then it updates to defeat that goblin. So we're going to go defeat him, and now it says talk to the quest giver. We go back here. She says, is it gone? And she gives me a reward again, which is a gold coin. So these are pretty simple things. The other important thing is just, in the setup, this final quest complete page, this is where you can change kind of what the reward is that the player gets, whether it's gold coins, extra experience. This is kind of where you get to choose all that. So you can kind of hook this up to actually give you, say 200 points of experience, which, if you go back here, our level up brain, that would be global player experience. So you can kind of reference global player experience to give them kind of an XP boost by completing a quest, or give them a bunch of extra gold, give them new armors, new items. That's all done right here. So they're two pretty simple quests, but kind of gives you an idea of how to kind of check for if a quest has been complete or not, and how to also set up a quest page. So last thing is, one last time, you have your initialization page where they first give you the quest. You have your quest active page that looks for if the quest has been complete or not. And then you have your quest complete page, which gives out the reward to you. So set that up for all of your different quests within your world, and you'll find life a lot easier for you.